When is taking the high road actually the wrong road? That's the conundrum that has faced Joey Savatgy for the last 3 years of his career. For some reason, Joey has become probably Mr. Unpopularity in the sport. I don't know about in the pits, but certainly amongst fans, even media people, Joey is not anyone's boy in any public forum that I could find. And the capper of this, the proof of all this, it all came to a head when he was announced with a factory Monster Energy Kawasaki 450 ride for 2019, and it was just instantly people pissed. No one pumped that he got the chance. Everyone pissed, and that was the crowning achievement. And it all started with some run-ins with Cooper Webb in 2016. He didn't get up on the winning end of those. A highly, highly publicized, it will be replayed for the rest of time, incident with Zach Osborne at the end of 2017 when he lost the title. A 2017 season that was filled with a lot of weirdo crashes. Also, a underwhelming 2018 season. And then there's Joey, who never really delved into those topics. He just kind of took it and didn't talk trash on anyone. He just took it. He seemed bummed when he lost, but he also seemed bummed even when he won. He never really seemed happy. He never really laid it out there. And I think eventually trying to avoid the drama and take the high road over and over left him as someone that didn't make any kind of impression on anyone. And essentially, he didn't become anyone's number one rider or number one fan. And when news came that he was moving up to the 450 class amongst 3 other riders who have titles, which is Osborne, Justin Hill is a 250 Supercross championship, and Aaron Plessinger, who won 2 titles last year, it felt like by far he was the 4th in a line of 4 riders on the popularity chart, and even on the Does He Deserve This Ride chart. So at that point I said, man, this is weird. And I actually saw Joey at Monster Energy Cup, and I said, dude, what is going on? And he's like, I don't know, man. I don't know. Everything on my social media is just negative. I don't know. So I think that's what it is. We have reached a day and age where we want transparency from our athletes. Not too much. We don't want excuses. We don't want stories, blame, anything like that. We just want transparency. And when a rider should be hurting emotionally, we want him to say it. And when a rider is pissed off at another rider, we want him to say it. And Joey, trying to take the high road, trying to stay out of it, never really saying a cross word despite some on-track dramas, I think it hurt. But only now has he begun to fix it all, and he's just done it the same way, not by talking, but with the scoreboard. He's ridden very well in his 450 rookie season, and I don't think at this point anyone can say he doesn't deserve the ride. So just that alone has probably turned the tide. But I'm still waiting for the real Joey Savatgy to come out. I know that there's personality back there. I know he's trying to take the high road and not necessarily show it. But as you will see in this edition of the Racer X Exhaust podcast, he is aware of the issue. He is aware he needs to be more outgoing. He's aware he needs to be maybe a little bit splashier on social media. He's been beaten up enough, and he's going to try to be better. But most importantly, he's probably going to continue to be himself, which is quiet and kind of behind the scenes. Riding's probably still going to do the most talking for him. But he's going to try to do a little bit more talking, starting with this edition of the Racer X Exhaust podcast, of course brought to you by Yoshimura. I am Jason Wygant. Yoshimura, the title sponsor here, 65 years of 4-stroke research and development. Check them out at yoshimura-rd.com. They've got all kinds of exhaust systems, whether you got an ATV, a street bike, or, of course, a dirt bike. They've got 2019 systems for the redesigned KTMs and Huskies. Of course, they make great stuff for Suzukis and Hondas because you see them every weekend on the factory Honda and Suzuki bikes. They've got stuff for Kawasaki's and Yamahas, obviously, too. And lots of good stuff for the street bikes as well. Have you seen what the Yoshimura Suzuki team does in road racing in the United States? So check out Yoshimura. Also check out Racer X. Look, that's what keeps the lights on. That's what pays the bills. That's what started it, the magazine. And we've revamped it. We've redesigned it. The magazine is better than ever. I'm working harder on the magazine than I am on anything else. I just finished two feature stories for the next issue that'll be out in a couple of weeks. We just released an issue right now, which has Davey Coombs' story on Brock Tickle, who's still, as of today, April 18th, waiting for information from the FIM. We had the podcast 2 weeks ago talking about the very famous and probably most expensive photo of motocross history with Brett Smith. That feature is in the new issue. Steve Mathis with a review of East-West shootout and showdown history and how it all started and what it was like back in the day. And also our Bike Week story. We call it Bike Tweet. That's all in the latest issue of the magazine. I highly recommend you check it out digitally, digital.racerxonline.com. Because it's free right now, and it won't be free forever. We're going to go back to subscribers only. But we want you to see this. I swear, this digital edition of the magazine, you will not think you're reading a magazine. You will just think you're reading cool stories on Instagram. It scrolls vertically, no pinch and zoom. It looks good. Check it out, digital.racerxonline.com. I'm tired of doing these magazine stories and not getting credit for it. It's a lot of work. We all put in a lot of work. It's motocross stories. You'll enjoy it. And also, Racer X brand, as you know, 20% off your order. It's still going. Exhaust in all capital letters. That's racerxbrand.com. T-shirts, hats, backpacks, jackets. We got it all. Now, live show coming up next Friday in New Jersey. So go to the Loft at Riverside Manor, 20 minutes from the stadium where they're holding the Supercross in East Rutherford. Our town where we're holding the event is Paterson, New Jersey. Tickets start at $20. Show goes 7 to 9. We'll have a meet and greet after for VIP ticket holders. This is my home state. I haven't lived in New Jersey since 2001 when I graduated college, but it is going to be awesome to be back amongst my people, and we found the person of those people, Barry Costin, to be one of our guests. We're also bringing Davey Coombs in, along with myself, Jason Thomas, Steve Mathis, and we'll get another guest before next Friday comes. Depends on who's traveling to the race. Barry is Barry. There's only one Barry Karsten. He almost single-handedly bankrupted Suzuki due to taking all their contingency money. I think that's why they don't sell cars here in the U.S. anymore. He just ran them out of money. And he's also the all-time leader in 125 Supercross starts and just one of the all-time hilarious characters of the sport. So it will be awesome to interview the New Jersey legend in New Jersey. That's the Loft at Riverside Manor this Friday coming up. Right before the New Jersey Supercross, and then we'll have another show live Friday night before the Vegas finale. That's Friday, May 3rd at the Space in Las Vegas, Nevada. Go to thespacelv.com, and we might have the greatest tandem duo of guests ever if they weren't so drunk when they told us they wanted to do this that they forgot. But if they were sober and they do mean to both come on, it is going to be amazing for our Vegas show. We had an awesome time at a packed house in Denver last Friday. So come hang out with us these Friday nights, man. It's epic bench racing, Pulp MX style, Racer X style. We'll see you there. Buy your tickets now. If you don't, I'll make you listen to this. Podcast. 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 Podcast, 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 podcast. Yeah! Now, let's get into it with Joey Savatgy. This interview was so good, I've divided it into two parts. We talked for over an hour, so I'm going to give you a little bit of podcast this week and a little bit of podcast next week. It's spring break, it's Easter, blah, 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 sue me. I'm giving you a 2-for-1. In this episode, we do get into the Zach Osborne incident. You know that's what you want to hear about with Savatgy. We also talk about his 2019 season, and then we'll get even deeper in part 2. So I hopefully you will listen to both. Let's start right here. Hey.
What's up, man?
What's up? Hey, thanks for squeezing us in.
Yeah, no worries, man.
Yeah.
It's a little delayed, but it'll work.
Yeah, you know, you had, let's run down. You had sickness and shoulder and
last 3 weeks. I was talking about this with my team after the race. The last 3 weeks, I think I have a total of 15 laps.
At home?
Yeah, at home. So
wow.
it's been, and I did the 15 laps the Thursday before Nashville because that was the week after I had the flu. So that was the only day I could ride that week.
Right.
So it's been tough is an understatement, man. It's like it started off rough at day one, and then everything got better, you know, like started clicking off some better finishes, led some laps, and everything was going good. And then it's like all of a sudden it kind of didn't spiral, but, you know, there was some things that went on that were tough, and it kind of just made it tougher than what it should have been.
I'll give you credit, though. I feel like, you know, you're dealing with it behind the scenes or internally, but results-wise, it's not like you're up and down. Like, you've been fairly solid across the board, despite the stuff you're probably dealing with. Maybe it doesn't feel that way.
No, I mean, the one that really sucked was the Triple Crown. And, you know, we did over 50 laps that night.
Yep.
You know, and with qualifying and everything, and like, that was, it definitely wasn't worse than the shoulder because the shoulder was painful, but like, from the standpoint of from Monday to Wednesday afternoon, I literally didn't leave bed, and I made it from my bed to the couch and back, and like I didn't even know if I was going to be able to get to Dallas because I was hurting so bad.
You
Got
mean
a little
just
bit
physically?
better. Dude, I was, yeah,
Yeah.
like I never threw up or anything, but fever from Monday night, I had the fever at 102, and
Ugh.
Friday night, I had G come by the hotel and work on me, and I still had 101 and a half fever. That was Friday night. So, like, I couldn't get rid of it, you know? So that weekend took a lot out of me just because, dealing with the fever and dealing with sickness, and then you add the Triple Crown, which is already chaotic, and then you're under the weather, so you have a lot of laps to do. It just that was tough.
Dude, but didn't you get fifth in Arlington despite that? And
No, I think we were eighth or ninth.
oh, okay,
Yeah,
gotcha.
no, it wasn't. That was yeah, it was the first moto was alright. I think we got fifth the first moto or something,
Yeah, yeah.
fifth or sixth, and then the second one I really like. That was that was really hard. And then the third one, I kind of was able to regroup a little bit, but
Right.
like just it's tough, dude. The class is gnarly, and then you have the shorter races, and then you have just a lot of laps because the lap times are short. There's a lot of things that didn't play out into my favor.
Yeah, eighth overall. That's right. You got
Yep.
eighth overall. That's right. In Triple Crown there. The shoulder.
Yep.
How in the heck did you do that? I mean, as soon as we heard your shoulders out, I was like, well, that could be it for out until outdoors. And you raced
Yeah.
again. How'd you do it?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, like, so the shoulder thing it was good and it was bad. It was good because when the shoulder came out, it went right back in.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it was one of those deals where it came out, and I don't know exactly if it went right back in, but I know when I walked over to the tough block and sat down, I kind of lifted my arm, and the pain didn't go away, but
Mm-hmm.
it had a different type of pain. So like it might have, and it's hard to tell because you can't see it on MRI, but we don't know if the shoulder came completely out or if it came halfway out.
Mm.
And then when I sat down on the tough block and moved it, it popped it back in. But the damage wasn't anything crazy, To be honest, I had a small uh, labrum tear,
Mm.
and it was one of those things where my doctor and I had some other doctors in California contact me, and they basically told me like, if you go down again, obviously shoulder first, you're going to further the injury and you could make it a lot worse. But if you stay off the ground, and you can manage the pain, you're not going to make it worse. It's definitely going to slow the healing down, but you're not going to make anything worse. So, obviously once I heard that, and that wasn't until Wednesday, because I tried to get in Sunday, or no, I text my doctor Sunday, and he's like, hey, I can't get you in Monday because our MRI machine is down, but we can get you in Tuesday. And
Mm.
by the time you read it was Wednesday morning. So obviously I was still doing therapy and everything, but it's hard to do therapy until you know exactly what's wrong. So I didn't want to go doing a bunch of work on my shoulder if there was for some reason something bad and I was doing more damage.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like a fine balance of try to strengthen the shoulder, but you have to keep in mind that if there's an issue, I don't want to do more damage. So once I found out Wednesday that everything was okay, is it could have been worse, but everything is manageable. That it's just up to me. And it was knee deep in therapy and ice and TENS unit, and I mean everything I could do. And then we went to the track Thursday, and I did starts, and then I went out and I tried to do a lap, and like this tiny little double double. I doubled the first one, and like I doubled the second one. I landed and I pulled over. I told my dad, I'm like, dude, I don't know if I can do it. Like that was the most painful thing that I've done in a while. And he's like, why don't you just save it? If you think like, because I made sure like, hey, I want to at least know that I'm able to ride the bike. And
Mm-hmm.
I came back in and I'm like, dude, that hurt. And then I kind of told myself, I'm like, dude, you can't just give up that easy. Like you only did half a lap. Go out again, and give yourself a fair chance.
Mm-hmm.
And I was able to run through the whoops twice, and I wanted to make sure I could do the whoops because
Yeah.
I thought the whoops were going to be the toughest part. Um, and as it turned out, that was actually the easiest part, on my shoulder because you're not really moving that much. I
Okay.
had to be a little slower in them than I wanted to because if the front end dropped or something, the pulling away motion was really difficult for me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I had to be a little hesitant in the whoops. But I was able to I did 3 laps Thursday, and it was probably at about 40%. I just wanted to make sure I could do all the jumps and everything. And I was like, all right, well, we'll make the effort. I'll fly out, and I'll take care of it Friday and show up Saturday. And if I go off for untimed and I can't do it, well, then I at least showed up and gave it an effort. My biggest thing was I didn't want to not go, because if I woke up Saturday morning, my shoulder was better or good enough, and I watched the race at home, I'd hate myself for not at least giving myself an opportunity to race.
Right.
Um, so with that mentality, it was like, all right, show up, don't expect anything, go out for practice. And realistically, I told myself, if I'm not inside the top 8 or 9 in qualifying, then I don't need to be racing, because number one, it's not doing me anything. And number two, I don't need to put more risk if I can't put myself in a good spot. And, like the first two practices were really tough for me because of the snow, the cold weather, and then the track was slippery. So I was fighting so many things. And when the track's slippery, I'm holding on to the bars and I'm trying to fight the bike from moving around. And then I'm like, dude, I came in after second practice and I told the guys, I said, I can't do it. Like, I'm trying, and I think we were 14th or 12th or something. And,
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, I can't. Like, I can't do it. It hurts, and I don't have the confidence in my shoulder. And we got back to the rig, and I was telling them that, and the sun came out, and I sat around for about 10 minutes or so, and I told them, I said, hey, I'm gonna try one more time. I said, you guys look at the data, because I thought maybe the suspension was a little off for the track conditions.
Hmm.
Um, and I said, just give me one more chance. I said, I'm gonna go out there now that it's dry and it's sunny and it's not so cold. I want to give it one more effort. And if it's nothing, then I'm out. But if it's something there that I think I can manage, then I'm all about it. And then obviously, as everything turned out, I think we were eighth for a while, and then I threw in a last lap heater, and I couldn't even do. I wanted to do the rhythm that Eli was doing, but I knew my shoulder wasn't going to be able to handle that.
Right.
So I had to do the triple out of the corner, then just go table over single. Um, I honest to God, we were only 3/10 off. I really believe that if I could have gone all the way onto the tabletop, we would have qualified quickest. Which
Maybe.
is,
Yeah.
it's funny, because in the big picture, looking back on it, like coming into it Thursday, I told myself I don't even know if I could do it. And then we showed up Saturday, and first two practices, we were almost ready to pull the plug, and then all of a sudden everything turned around and we got a good lap in, and then all of a sudden it's like, all right, we're third. Like, dude, we're not in a bad spot. You go for the heat race after sitting around for a little while, shoulders tight. We got beat, we got smoked actually, but we got in the main event, which is
Hmm.
what we needed to do. And then we went out for the main event, and basically I told the guys, I said, I'm gonna do my best. Let me know how many laps we got, and I'm gonna try to manage it. I don't think I'm gonna be able to go fast the whole time, but I'm gonna do the best I can. And then we got a good start, and we were up there, and it definitely helped my case that we got a good start, because I put myself in a situation where I had to do it. There were so many people behind me and sticking a wheel in there that it kept me focused on what I needed to do, and not so much on what was painful or what not painful. Um, and as it turned out, man, it was awesome. We should have had fourth. Obviously Justin rode great, but we had two opportunities there to make the pass, and I do believe that if I made the pass, we would have stayed in front of him. But a fifth on a night where I didn't think I was going to race is something that I didn't think, not even a little bit, Tuesday morning, that I was going to even be able to race, let alone get another top five. So it
Well, what's
was,
I'm saying? Like, if anyone just goes and looks at your results, they wouldn't really realize that you were going through any adversity at all. Like, you were right, and even just watching the main in Denver, I mean, you were battling. It wasn't like anytime someone came up on you, you're like, okay, I'm hurting. You fought back.
yeah,
Like anytime even somebody passed you,
yep,
you tried to get them back. Yeah.
yeah, and that was just like I said. Best case scenario was get a good start
Yeah.
and put myself in the dogfight, because then it's fight or flight. Like, I'm either going to put up a fight and I'm going to handle it, or I'm going to shut down and we're going to go backwards. And and I had a good feeling that if I got up there, I wasn't going to let myself quit. And with the adrenaline and with just so much going on, I was, like I said, very confident that if we got a good start, we could have a decent night. And obviously, as it turned out, it was probably better than what I thought or anyone thought. Um, but man, like I said, it's hard to complain, and we're just trying to keep the ball rolling.
did it all of a sudden kick in at one point, like when the race was over, or the night, like the night later on in the night, or the next day? Like
Well, to
how
be
that hurt?
honest,
Yeah.
like I haven't even really said anything to anyone, but I haven't ridden all week, and I don't plan on riding this weekend.
Yep.
And that's not even so much my shoulder. So and we haven't figured out what because I didn't want to go get an MRI,
Hmm.
but like my lower back is basically all the way up until I would say yesterday was the first day that I could really bend over and tie my own shoes.
Oh,
Like so
jeez.
it's been one thing after another,
Right.
dude. Like that's what I'm saying. It's been tough, but I think it's really been good for me because it's putting me in positions I don't want to be in, and I think that's the best thing for me. And that's the best thing I think for a lot of people is putting yourself somewhere where you don't want to be because you don't have a choice. And like ideally, I would have loved to have rode outdoor this week,
Hmm.
but it's I'm not even going to be able to ride this week. It's supposed to be a storm coming in the morning because I was going to try to ride some tomorrow, but like dude, my back's been so bad and I don't know if it's just like if it's a pinched nerve, it's a pulled muscle, like if I had maybe like a bulged disc, like and I did case a triple pretty hard in practice. Um, it wasn't really the altitude. I kind of forgot about the altitude, so I mistimed something, and I cased it pretty hard. But and I don't know, maybe it was just the fact that the way I was riding, I was compensating with my body for my shoulder, and maybe that's what threw it out of whack. But man, it's it's been
Oh.
tough.
Was that all came from that case, or has the back been bad for a while, or did it all start in
No,
Denver?
I didn't have any issues,
Oh, okay.
and I went out for first practice and I was all good. Shoulder was sore, and then I came in and I was like, my back's a little sore. And I came back in after second practice and I was like, dude, my back is ruined. Like I could barely stand upright. And then by the time I finished the main event, like standing next to my bike, my legs were shaking so bad
Wow.
that like, and again, I don't know what it was from. I don't know if it's just if it was muscle because I was compensating or if
Yeah.
if I did something, but it's just like when it rains, it pours, and it's tough because I'm trying to. I really before we had the crash at Seattle or Nashville, I've really had the goal is to get on the podium, and I believe that's doable, and I still believe it's doable. I just think it's a lot tougher now with the situation and not being able to ride as much, and
Okay.
I believe that Nashville we would have been on the box. I truly do believe that, but everything happens, and that's on me for not executing. But it's just we're trying to take care of myself, and it's tough in this class because you go so many weekends in a row before you even get a break. So we go 15 in a row, and it's like thankfully for us it was around 13 that we had an issue.
Yeah.
And then we are like, all right, we got to manage these 2 weekends, and then we get a weekend off. But I could only imagine, you have something go wrong in round 6 or 7, and you got 8 more rounds to go. It's a lot.
As always, though, you always put the heat on yourself, man. You've always done this. So, like, yeah, there you go. Like, you didn't execute in Nashville, so that was the problem. Like, you always put the heat on yourself. I feel like a lot of guys always point fingers in other
Yeah, and
directions. I feel like
it,
even when you've won races, I've seen you point the finger at yourself and say you should have done better.
yeah, and honestly, that's just because it's the truth. Like I'm a wee guy, and I get a lot of slack for it, and people in my closer circle are always like, who's we?" And I'm like, well, my bike, my team, like it's a
Hmm.
we effort. It's not
Hmm.
me. Like obviously, it's up to me to execute,
Yeah.
and if I don't do well and we don't perform, that's on me.
Hmm.
But if we do well, then yeah, we did well because the team, my mechanic, he did a good job. Theo, my crew chief, he gave me the information and he told me or we made changes based
Hmm.
off what he saw. So like I'm very much a we person until things don't go right. When things don't go right, it's on me, and that's the bottom line. I'm the only one riding, and that's just and that's honestly a lot of RC in my ear as well. Like he's the first guy to if I crash or something, he's the first guy to give me a hard time because I wasn't mindful of what was going on. So I blame a lot of that on Ricky.
All right. So, wait. So, if I get this right, if you do well, it's we. If you do poorly, it's you. Is that the way? That's the way you're
Yeah,
breaking this down?
basically, yeah.
Dude, I remember, I think it was the opener for the 17. Didn't you win the Minneapolis opener for 17 250SX in
Yep.
the East? And you were like the most not pumped on yourself winner I had seen in quite some time because I guess you
Dude,
just felt like you didn't ride well that night.
yeah, and I talked to Ricky about it, dude, and he's had the same type of main events. We never should have won that main event. No way we should have won that main event. And honestly, Zach should have won that main event had he not tipped over. But
Hmm.
that's part of the game. You know, you make a mistake, you go down, you put yourself in a bad spot. But
Right.
dude, I mean, as bad as we rode, like there was no way we should have won that main event. And that was one of those main events where you walk away and you're like, dude, that was so bad. We dodged a bullet, and that's how I felt leaving there.
Can you put a finger on what? I mean, obviously last year wasn't exactly what you wanted, but 17, these weirdo crashes. And by the way, you're on a 450 now, and you've been more consistent. You haven't had a lot of those. But what can you? Is there anything you were ever able to figure out looking back at 17 and being like, why did these weirdo crashes happen? It was like weird.
Oh man, that's a slippery slope for me.
Yeah,
Um, I, I don't know if I can.
I'm sure you've
I
thought
don't
about it a lot.
know,
I'm
and
sure
I
you have.
know, and I
Yeah.
know what the issues are, but
Oh, okay.
I just don't feel okay with going down that road of basically going into detail what
Okay.
I think, you
Yep.
know, and that's mainly because I have a lot of respect for everyone that I was working with.
Gotcha. Yep.
You know, but I do believe that there was a big contributing factor to those crashes, and that was out of my hands. And you
Gotcha.
know, and other people might not agree with that, but you know, I know what I know, and you look at 16 and how good we did then,
Hmm.
and obviously like you look at this year and how good we've been doing. I didn't change, man. Like I put in the same amount of work in 17 and 18 as I did in 15 and 16 and this year. It's just it's tough and
I see. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, it's a slippery slope.
Well, I think you've proven here that you're not just making excuses if you don't honestly believe it. Like if you feel like you made mistakes, you would put it on yourself. You've done that
Yeah, no,
before. Yeah.
absolutely. You know,
Yeah.
like the crash I had in Toronto, after Osborne passed me,
Hmm.
um, and I was still doing that stupid quad, and I ended up crashing clip from the tough block and crashing. That was on me. That was stupid.
Yeah.
That was my emotion getting the best of me because Zach had passed me and he was putting time on me, and I was so frustrated that I was getting beat
Mhm.
that I felt like I had to do the quad, you know, for whatever reason, and it was so dumb because we had such a big gap over third. And all I needed to do that night was bring home second and take my loss. And that was one of those deals where, I mean, that's a learning thing. You know, I know that now, but like that crash was on me. But a lot of those weird corner crashes and stuff,
Right.
it's tough to say.
Yeah. 16 was really solid until I guess you got sick toward the end of the year. But I mean, and even in
Yeah.
outdoors, it was rolling.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
dude, we lost Supercross by 1 point,
Right.
you know,
Yep.
and that was after a questionable move in Dallas, you know,
Which
like,
again, I remember calling you after that, and you didn't talk trash. Like, I mean, it was pretty bad. I mean, Craig pretty much moved over on you in the whoops, but you kind of took the high road there. You could have just blasted
yeah,
him.
that was yeah. Again, like I have a lot of people in my corner that are helping me in the right direction as
Hmm.
far as you know when to really go after people and when to just kind of bite my tongue. And
Yeah.
that was one of those deals where it wasn't going to change anything. You know,
Hmm.
like but if I blew them out,
Yeah.
it wasn't going to change the results that night, and it wasn't going to help me.
Yeah.
So like you know, most people saw it and were like, "Man, that wasn't right." Like whatever.
Yeah.
And looking back on it, it still bums me out, but again, we lost the Supercross championship by 1 point that night.
Yeah.
And you know, and hats off to Cooper, he did what he had to do in Vegas, and it was it was chaotic. But then we went to outdoor, dude, and we won the first three of the four outdoors.
Hmm.
You know, like everything was good, and then yeah, as the summer went on, we had some health issues that unfortunately, looking back on it, we had no idea what we were getting into.
Hmm.
Um, and it's just yeah, like that was a bummer too because it was going so bad that I literally there's nothing I could do or any of us could have done at that time to fix it instantly. It was like a long process to fix things,
Right.
and so like we got to Muddy Creek, and I truly believe this, and I told Johnny this too. Like I believe that that's the weekend where I really buried myself and made my health worse because if you remember, we didn't get the whole shot, or maybe we did. We won the first moto,
Yep.
right? And I remember too because I come on every lap and the pit board. I have a picture of it. I posted it before. Like I was like a 46.2, and then and then whoever was behind me was like 46.5. And I remember seeing the pit board that lap and thinking to myself, dude, this is almost easy. Like I was coming around every lap, pulling 2 or 3 tenths a lap, you
Hmm.
know, and I had a decent gap. And like I cruised over the finish line, and I'm like, dude, this is like not easy, but like it's coming so fast, and it's just like I can't do much wrong. And I
Hmm.
remember I crashed the second moto, and it was hot. I crashed twice,
Mhm.
and like it was one of those things where I think I pushed my body so far that day that it magnified everything that was wrong. And from that moment, from that weekend on, I wasn't the same. We got to. I remember because we went to was it Redbud
Red
next?
Bud. You gave a good chase. The first moto there,
Yep,
you
the
got
first
second, but you
moto.
and Coop battled.
Yep,
Yeah.
and that was one of those deals where I was following behind him, and
Yep.
I was so mad because I literally felt like I was riding around at like 65, 70% because I didn't have the energy.
Oh.
I
Mhm.
didn't have the energy in me to go after him, and it was like I was fighting it, dude. And I'm like, dude, I can go so much faster. And every time I try to push, I just was so flat. And then obviously we had that big crash second moto, and dude,
Yeah.
from there it was so far gone. I couldn't bring it back.
Hey, everybody. Wagan here again. Quick reminder, Racer X Exhaust Podcast brought to you by Yoshimura. Check them out, yoshimura-rd.com. Check them out on social media as well. Sweet pictures of bikes with sweet pipes. 65 years of four-stroke research and development. The best stuff that you want to have hanging out the back of your dirt bike, ATV, or street bike. Now let's go back to Joey Savatgy. Did I hear that you were somebody once said that there was even some data about the impact? You like cased the bottom of that ski jump. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Somebody said like, "Oh, dude, it was like an 8G hit," but I don't even know what you would have to measure that. Did somebody make
I
that
think.
up? Or
Well, the Lip Pro
oh, it
measures
does measure
impact.
G-force. Oh, I heard it
Yep.
was some insane number, like when you bottomed out down there.
I can't remember,
Yeah,
dude. It was hard. Like it
yeah,
was. That was one of those deals where, like, as it was happening, I was like, dude, I'm done for the year. Like one of those type of impacts. But
yeah.
I don't know numbers, man.
Right.
I'm
But it
not
was a big
sure.
hit.
It was a big hit,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So you dug yourself out of that. You go into 17. I feel like you were the favorite going in. You win round one. But did you ever feel really then during 17 that you ever got it where you wanted it? Even though
No,
you were in the points, the
no,
riding was never where you wanted it, right?
no, not even close.
Uh, and especially
Eh,
knowing how well you rode the year before, that had to be even more frustrating because you already knew what that felt like to have it.
Yep, yeah, exactly. And like I said, it's it's one of those deals where, like, when you win those races when you shouldn't have won, it was
Yeah.
a complete opposite because coming into 17, it felt good. We got to the first race and like I won. I was like, all right, sweet. And we got to the second race, and it was like one of those deals where I knew that I didn't have it,
Yeah.
and I knew that we were struggling with a lot of things.
Yeah.
And it was one of those deals where, like, dude, what do? You can't tell yourself you're struggling because then you have the mentality that you don't have it. It's like,
Mm.
every weekend come in and be like, all right, dude, like I won the first round, like we could do it again. And we show up every weekend and we struggle and we have these crashes, and I'm like, I can't do anything. Like you're neck deep at that point. There's no getting out of it. You have to show up every weekend inside knowing that it's not ideal. That's tough. Like, thank God it wasn't a 17 round series that I had to deal with that. Like it's only a 9 round short series, but
Yeah.
every weekend you show up and you're like, I know it's in there, but I just know I don't have it right now, and that's tough. And especially when you have someone like Zach who was riding well and was in shape, and man, like I said, it's tough when you know that you don't have the tools that you need right then, and you still have to show up every weekend and try to beat these guys that have pretty much a lot of their stuff lined up.
Yeah. And that almost, I feel like, hurt your reputation a little bit because you were having these problems. And I guess that's one of the things you guys struggle with. People want you to be like super open and honest, but as you're saying, you almost, if you get too honest when you're struggling, it almost brings you down. Like you need to almost convince yourself
Yep.
that nothing is going wrong. And
Oh,
it's not just you. I've heard that all over and over. They're like, well, at the time, I really didn't want to admit to myself what was wrong. So, of course, I didn't tell anybody.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. People are like, "Oh, why don't you be more honest? Why don't you tell us in detail?" I'm like, "Well, for one, it's none of your business. Like my life is my life. If I choose to come out and tell you guys what's wrong, that's because I feel like I want to tell you guys.
Yeah.
Like I don't ask my fans for daily updates as to what's wrong with them and what's
Hmm.
going on.
Hmm.
So like, if I choose to tell people, it's because I want to. And the second half of that is if you go and you tell people what's wrong all the time, you leave open ends, and you weaken your armor, because then your opponents and then your competition and people know what's wrong. It's just a target,
Yeah.
like it's something that people can thrive on, and they know, like that stupid saying, there's blood in the water and there's a shark in the water. It's like it's one of those deals where you start telling people that you have issues, you start leaving blood trails, and when your competition hears that, dude, it boosts your confidence. And I'm not gonna lie because I've heard it. You know, like when we got to Vegas and Cooper had that supposedly wrist injury that magically got better for outdoor. Never quite figured out how that worked. Um, it was like he had a wrist injury, dude, and it was like game on. You know, every practice went out, I was gunning for him because I wanted to try and beat him down mentally as much as possible that day before we got to the main event. And that's just because I knew he was already weak. And, you know, like that's why a lot of these people I think don't go and tell people what's wrong with them because you don't want people to know because it just leaves you vulnerable.
This is awesome. I finally heard someone has finally articulated this because on my side and the fan side, they're always like, no one cares, just say it. So there you go. You're giving me actual proof that you've heard riders say that they're hurt or have a weakness, and it helped you. It boosted you,
Absolutely.
and it hurt. It made it obviously worse for them because, and Cooper tried to cover it as long as he could, but
Yep.
obviously news travels over the course of like 5 weeks or whatever it was that he was hurt.
Yep.
So yeah, it makes you dig down deep or go after them. I mean, you weren't trying to knock him down and hurt his wrist, but it made you ride
No,
better.
no, no.
Yeah,
Yeah, it makes you ride better
yeah,
because well, it makes you ride better, but you also know that if you get into a shoving match with them, you
hmm
know that what their weak spot is.
yep,
So, you know, like you keep that in mind.
yep,
So if dude comes and starts playing games like all right, if it's his left side that hurts, you know, you run it in on the inside on the left side and you make them think twice. And like I said, then you get them start thinking about what's wrong and their injury, you know, it changes the mentality. So
and I'll give you
for
another
me at
one.
least.
You were struggling in 17 with these crashes, but since everyone figured you're fine, every week it was like, oh, well, this will be the week he figures it out and goes in a win streak. Like it didn't look like you were vulnerable because we were just like, he
Yeah.
just tipped over again. But
Yeah, he just had tip over. You know, exactly. And that's because,
yeah,
dude, if I would have came out after round two and been like, hey, like I don't have it, we're struggling, dude, that would have been they would have been coming for my neck every weekend. And that was
yeah,
like, dude, I'm trying to avoid that. Like I'm already in a hole. I'm not trying to have
hmm
everyone know my issues or what we're dealing with because it's just like I said, it leaves you vulnerable and it makes you that
right,
much weaker. So
hmm
like I do believe that you know when you find out people are hurt or people are nursing something like it's that instinct of like all right well he's wounded and you know like I'm gonna take advantage of that.
So then we go down to the crazy moment that everybody will always want to talk about, the Vegas finale. And again, you avoided. I've never really heard you talk much trash about it. People assume you must hate Osborne, and every time you see him, you get fired up and you want to pay him back. But I've never actually heard you say anything cross about it.
Well, no, because I mean I did for a long time. I mean obviously that night it was like leaving the parking lot. I'm like dude if I see this guy in the car I'm gunning for him, but
Yeah,
that's heat of the moment, you know, things happen. And I never talk trash because, dude, I would have done the same thing.
right.
Like, and that's what people don't understand. Like, it bothers me when the not so much the media. I mean, there are some media outlets that blow it out of proportion, but then there's also just all of the fans who always are like, oh, Joey Osborne, like they, you know, he's
Yes.
gonna get him back. He's gonna get
hmm
him back, and it's like, get him back for what? I mean, you know, had it been for a heat race or something, like, yeah, I'd be pissed, but dude, in the big picture, looking back on it, I wouldn't have hesitated to do the same thing. And that's just something that, dude, it's for a title. Like, you don't come across that opportunity all the time. So, do I blame him? No, not at all.
Yeah.
Does it, did I get the short end of the stick? Yeah, absolutely. You know, like, that's something that he'll forever live with. And,
Yeah. Yeah. I'm
you
sure
know,
you were
like,
devastated. I'm sure you
yeah,
were
yeah.
devastated.
Oh, dude, I
Yes.
wanted to just, honestly, I wanted to quit and not see anybody ever again. Like I was ready to go off the map and just leave.
Sure. Yep.
And you know, it's just because it's you work for this your whole life and to
Yep.
have it be so close and then taken away, it's tough.
hmm
But like I said, it's something that you don't get very many opportunities out of title. Number one, and
Yeah.
number two, when the opportunity's there, you know, for him, yeah, you better believe that I'm gonna absolutely not just pile drive somebody if it means that the chance of a championship is on the line. And the thing is we've never talked, right? So we've never been friends.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know the guy.
Yeah.
We used to chit chat a little bit, you know, like on the starting line, like my JDR year,
hmm
and I've even gotten into it with him in my rookie year. Like we got into it and whatever, but like is the dude okay by himself? He might be like if you know if you're his friend and you hang out with him, he's probably not a bad dude. But for me, I have no interest. You know, like there's nothing for us to talk about, and that's
Yeah.
the thing. Like people always think there's bad blood, and there's really not anymore because I've moved on and I'm in a new part of my life, and like, dude, I was in a bad spot for a while after that just because of how tough and you have to deal with social media, unfortunately, sometimes, and then you got everyone talking about it, and it sucked. But I'm just in a different spot right now to where that doesn't bother me anymore, and it's like I don't have a desire to get back at him just because it's not going to do me any good now. And I guess the bottom line is that there's nothing for us that we have in common. I mean, that we should talk about, or if I saw him, like, even if we went to hash it out, like, hey, like, things happen, it's whatever, it's in the past. Like, are we good? Yeah, I'm good with it. Like, it doesn't bother me, but it doesn't mean I'm gonna go be his friend, and that's just the bottom line, and that's just part of being a racer. Like, I don't really have any friends out when I'm out there,
Mm-hmm.
and I have no desire to be his friend off the track. And that's not meant in a disrespectful way. I just there's nothing there for me. Like, why we weren't friends before, so why would I be afterwards? I
Well,
guess.
I guess here, help me clarify here. It's like, okay, you're not going to be super buds with them, but you're also, is it any different than most of the other guys you're racing? Or is that pretty much the way you work with a lot of the people that you race, not just specifically Zach Osborne? Is that how it is? Like, that's
Wait,
kind of the way.
say that first part again. I had some lady
Oh,
waving me. I
oh,
was
sorry.
confused.
That's okay. Yeah, you're not planning on being super buds with him, but is that the way you actually feel about a lot of the people you race? And it's not just because of Vegas, but it's just kind of the way you operate with a lot of riders?
Yeah,
Yeah,
honestly, I would say that's probably true. Like, there's a lot of guys that, like, I will be social with,
yeah.
and I've gotten a lot better this year about talking to just other people. Jesus, my car's freaking out.
Yeah,
Talking to other people that I don't normally talk to, and just trying to be social with people, like, pre-staging, or hanging out watching practice or whatever. Like, I've tried to do a better job of being a little bit more friendly, and that's just because, I'm trying to not have that same mentality of not talk to anyone because we're all competitors or whatever.
yeah,
Um, so no, I wouldn't say that Zach is the only one in that group, because there's a
right.
lot of people that I don't, that I wouldn't go get dinner with after the race.
Yeah,
Like, obviously I still respect Zach, and from the side of, he's a good rider, and what he was able to accomplish was something that will go down in the books, that was impressive, and how everything went down. Like, it was good for him.
mhm,
Obviously, for me it wasn't, but
yeah,
I just have the mentality that, like, I have a few guys that I race with, that I talk to, and I'm friends with, but it's nothing against Zach, and that's the biggest thing, dude. I'm so tired of people, like, thinking there's bad blood and there's retaliation, and obviously there's not, because like, every weekend I show up, and if I get fifth, I'm not like, oh, what'd Zach get?
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
I don't. It doesn't bother me if he got eighth, 12th, 16th. I wouldn't know, because all I'm worried about is who beat me.
mhm,
Like, if I got fifth, who was in front of me, and how much did they beat me by, and where can we be better? So it's not like I show up and I'm worried about Zach all the time.
yeah.
And other people are always like, "Oh, rookie of the year," and I'm like, "Yeah, that's cool and all, but what does that win me?" Like,
Oh, you don't even care about that. You're just
no,
racing.
because I'm just trying to get better, man. Like,
Yeah.
I'm on a 1 year deal, and
Hmm.
I want to prove to people that it's not this year is not. Well, at first it was. I wanted to prove to people that Monster Cup wasn't a fluke, because there were so many people that were like, "Oh, it wasn't a real Supercross track. He's not going to do good when we get to Supercross."
Yeah.
And there were so many people that I wanted to shut up on that end of it.
Okay.
And then we started off rough, and I'm like, "All right, dude, I got to get my stuff together." And then we started doing better, and then all those people, they kind of settled down. But for me, like, will it be cool to win Rookie of the Year? It would be awesome, because I won Rookie of the Year in the 250. So to win the 250 Rookie of the Year and the 450 Rookie of the Year, I think would be cool. But that's not. It's not like I showed up to Anaheim one like, oh, dude, I want to win Rookie of the Year. Like, for me, it was, I showed up, and I want to improve every weekend. I want to try to make every round, and I have goals that I want to meet. And if I can meet them, awesome. If not,
Yeah, like I'd say from that Vegas, actually the having the crashes and weirdo stuff in 17, and then the Vegas ending all the way through. I feel like you've had like a 2 year span of like people. I'm sure you've seen it on social media. I think you and I talked about it briefly at Monster Cup. Like, dude, people just hating on you. And then the Cowie 450 ride, people like hating on you. Like,
Oof.
dude.
Dude, the Cowie 450 press release was
Oh,
brutal. Oh my
yes. Okay, so
god,
you're aware of
dude.
this stuff. Like, you know it.
Oh, I see it, and it's like, and I still like reply sometimes to people who are just talking trash on the internet, and people think it bothers me. I just do it because I get a kick out of making people, bite their words or just, like my favorite is when people try to insult me and they don't even spell the words right. Like I always like to correct them on that. Just a little petty stuff that I
Okay.
know bothers them.
Uh-huh.
But dude, I'm very aware of the social media side, and dude, from Vegas up until like even I guess from Vegas to the Cowie press release, it was gnarly. Like I think I had more people on my social media that were just there just to talk trash than there were on the just to be supportive. So like I'm very very aware of how gnarly it was, and it was really bad for that Cowie press release. Like that's probably the worst I've ever seen on. I don't want to say anyone's, but dude, it's up there for some of the gnarliest stuff I've seen on
No,
on
no, I
someone's
totally
Instagram.
agree. Like, normally, the normal thing is like, hey, that's awesome. This guy's getting a shot. It did
Yeah.
not go that way for you. Now, is there something you could, like, did you look at that and say, like, I got to change something or do something? Or do you even, I mean, did
I
that cross
mean,
your mind at all? Like, am I doing something wrong? What can I do different? Does that even cross your mind?
I'm gonna be honest. Like I get critiqued quite a bit. Um, People in my corner are always like, dude, you need to be more friendly. Like you need to do more on social media. You need to do this. And dude, like I'm not the type of guy that I don't need to go on social media and post myself working out. Like I know what I do,
Hmm.
and I know I work my butt off during the week,
Hmm.
and I just never feel like, man, I gotta go post it and let everyone know. And I'm very shy, so I come off as, I guess you could say, cocky or arrogant or something.
Hmm.
But I'm not going to go out of my way and make conversation with people I don't know, and that's just how I've always been. Like I'm a very quiet person, and you take me out of my off my dirt bike and out of my helmet, I'm even still shy. Like I prefer to do opening ceremonies with my helmet on because it gives me like that invisible barrier of of
Wow, really?
yeah, and that's just because I'm not, like I said, I'm not an outgoing person by any means. Now, once you get to know me, like, or my close friends, like, I'm the most outgoing person, one of the most outgoing people you'll meet.
Right.
But if you don't know me, like I said, I'm very quiet, and I'm not going to make the attempt to be friends. And that's just because I'm shy. So, like, dude, the opening ceremony thing is like 100% real. Like, I prefer my helmet on because it gives me that little bit of a barrier, like where I can be a little bit more, I guess, comfortable.
Hmm.
And I mean, I guess you could view that as you want. Some people probably won't like that answer, but that's just how I am. And like I don't know. I guess it could be a bad thing, but it's hard to change that.
But Joey Savatgy is trying to change that, and we'll see how it's going when we check in with him. Part 2 of this interview that we will post in a couple of days. Big thanks to Yoshimura, our title sponsor. Check them out, yoshimura-rd.com. If you're serious, it's Yoshimura. And they just redesigned the website. It's cool, so go look at it. Also, look at the new issue of Racer X. It's got stories you like. I guarantee it. You like motocross. I like motocross. We write about motocross. You read about motocross. You can see it at our new digital edition, digital.racerxonline.com. It's free right now. Not supposed to be, but we're doing it. And if you get the print magazine, we are now including free posters with every issue. We've never done this before. So we're stepping up the pace, man. We're stepping up the game. Support the magazines so you can keep these podcasts going. That's what keeps the lights on. And finally, Racer X brand. Type in exhaust in all capital letters. Get 20% off your order. We're working on some new attire. I guess that'd be like a summer line or something. I don't know. We'll have it soon. Keep that exhaust code, all caps, in your back pocket. Be ready to save money. That's what I would do. That's it for our show. Thanks to Joey Savatgy. We'll be back with part 2 of this in a couple of days. Thanks for listening.